Look at that technology. Ken, I was pushing a button, a virtual one, and nothing was happening. I miss the old play button from, the Walkman and all that kind of stuff. That's why I talk about that all the time. But anyway, yeah, the red light is on, recording. It's a post-Infosecurity Europe 2025 event. I'm still in Europe. That one was in London, and we're connecting with the UK again with a good friend, Ken Munro. Welcome.
Hey, thanks so much for the invite.
Always good to see you. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hang out much when we were in London because you were busy. We walked in, I think, the last day. The DJ was going. People were having a good time. We got a beer. That's good, Sean and I. So, it's always a plus. And we got to see you for like a couple of minutes. But I felt like it wasn't enough. And I really wanted to catch up with you and hear what has been going on there with Rant and with all the villages. I didn't think about you. I think about DEFCON. That's where we met years ago. So give us a little intro about who you are, what you do for people that don't know. They don't know that. And then we dive in on what happened in London 2 weeks ago.
So my name's Ken Munro, and I work for a firm called Pen Test Partners. And I guess the clue's in the name. We're pen testers, but we're really into particularly around embedded systems, as well as more broad red teaming, that sort of thing. But our real joy is looking at things you can touch and hack.
Yeah, it's fun. Sounds fun. So you're talking about not things like small things. You're talking about cars and airplanes and boats. I mean, wondering where is the inflatable captain that you usually have with you too. That's an inside joke, I guess, if people can't see it there. The movie Airplanes.
Do you know what? So I hosted an event on a retired airplane, an old 747 a few years ago. And the owner had Otto the autopilot, the famous autopilot from the airplane movie, remanufactured. And they had one spare. And I bought it the moment I saw it. And we take Otto everywhere we go. Do you know what blows my mind? Everybody loves Otto. Everyone wants a photograph with the autopilot.
Selfie, right?
And the bit that made me chuckle is it was a custom manufacture. And the guy that made it put the top-up valves, the inflation valves, kind of in his crotch, just like in the movie. So there's lots of funny photographs of me genuinely trying to inflate this autopilot. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yeah, lot of fun. But it's not all fun and game. Although what I like about what you guys do, and I want to go back to when we met years ago. At DEFCON, was I believe at the aerospace. At the time, I think it wasn't even aerospace. It was still like Airplane Village. What was it called at the time?
Yeah, so it was the Aviation Village back.
Oh, Aviation. Okay.
Was it 2019? So we helped
18 maybe.
Yeah. We helped get it founded. There's a really cool team of people, pilots, cybersecurity consultants with expertise in aviation, came together to try and partly connect researchers with industry, which is cool, and also try and dispel some of the myths about airplane hacking too.
Mm-hmm. I still remember that was probably 2019. When there was a flock of government people coming through the village, walking and getting explanation about what's going on. And I think it was a pivotal moment that for the industry where, CISA then started getting more involved and all of that. And I'm wondering, and we should talk about that in a little bit, what happened from that time, right? When you founded the village with the mission of educating people really to where we stand in now. But before we do that, tell me what you guys did in London. It was a small village, a small DEFCON, in my opinion.
It's one of the things that I love about DEFCON is that sense of community, providing a platform to bring industry researchers, people to collaborate and share. And I think it's a really powerful thing. And that's what we tried to do with the Fox pub venue next to Infosecurity Europe this year, is we wanted to try and bring some of the flavor of DEFCON, the idea of education, of learning, of collaborating, of researching together alongside the show. And as a result, we created a stack of little villages with things to see, to do, to little CTFs. Whether it was something as simple as a car. So we would teach people how the CAN works on a vehicle and then do something fun with it. And it just makes security real. It makes it tangible. It makes it something you can touch rather than something you see.
Or something you hear about, and it stays very theoretical. And I think that's the big issue about educating everyday people to even use two-factor, or or realizing that the car is actually a huge computers on wheels, right?
I think there's quite a barrier from someone going, look, I understand the network, I understand network traffic, I understand firewalls, network segregation. To then take that and go, okay, well, let's look at a completely different set of protocols, a completely different network that I'd never looked at before, like a car or an industrial controller.
Mm-hmm. So tell me exactly what was the, I keep calling it village, but it was more like independent location. So you look at maritime boats, and then you had the car. Was it like a flying simulator as well, and
Yes.
and control system, which is super important. So
We
give me a
had so many.
walkthrough. Somebody comes in, what did they see?
So we had about 4,000 square feet of space, which was great. It was held in a pub, but we cleared all the furniture out. We left the bar there, of course, because,
Yeah.
the pub, right?
And the UK.
So we invited people after they were done with the main show, after they'd been and seen lots of different vendors. We wanted people just to come and do something just a bit more educational. And a great example is front and center. So we have a hacking car, a demo car, if you like. And what we want to do is, what we were trying to show is how easy it is actually to get onto the CAN, onto the controller or network on a car, how easy it is to actually start analyzing that data and then start doing useful things. So we were teaching people, you had to get in the car, and one of my team would be there with some CAN tooling, showing how you connect to it, and then showing the data, how you analyze the millions of messages that are flying past, and then how you do something fun. And the cool bit we did this year, so last year we locked people in the car, and they had to basically intercept and replay the lock and unlock messages so they can get themselves out again, right?
Escape room.
Yeah, literally, it's a car hacking escape room. You're locked in, and you can't get out until you've figured out how to intercept and replay the messages. This year, we thought we'd make it a bit different. So for fun, we showed people how you could intercept the messaging showing the steering wheel angle, the accelerator, the throttle, and the brake. And then we built a state table that took that CAN data and then spat it out into Mario Karts. So you could literally, through understanding how to intercept and replay CAN data, is you could actually then drive and play Mario Karts. Now, I know Tesla do it, but try doing it on a 15-year-old Renault Clio.
Right. Fun. A lot of people in the US wouldn't even know what a Renault Clio is, because
it's like a super micro
yeah,
vehicle, yeah.
well, utilitarian vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's fun, and so people learn. And what by people we mean, obviously, people that come there is not the everyday person; is already people in the industry, right? So you're talking to developers, programmers. I mean, yes, CTOs and CISOs and everybody that wants to touch, right?
Yeah, we also invited industry groupings as well. So in the US, so the automotive ISAC works across the world to, again, encourage collaboration and sharing between the auto industry and research groups and others, which is great. So they came along, and it was really cool to have some automotive OEMs there. Again, just showing how easy it is to get into vehicle security, then start understanding how we can all help improve it.
Yeah, everybody can be obviously down about it. So that's the car. Most of us drive a car. Then you get bigger stuff. So what you do with the bigger thing?
Yeah. So as you'll know from our work in aerospace through DEFCON, we have a full cockpit simulator from an Airbus A320. And the reason we do that is to help, first of all, general network cyber specialists understand some of the security protocols and methods that are present in vehicles. In airplanes. And that's really important, because I think there are many myths about airplane hacking. It's actually very, very difficult to do. It's not something you do back in coach in your seat. It doesn't work. But the particular example we had this time was we'd shown how it's possible to interfere with some of the collision avoidance messages, basically the system that stops two airplanes flying into each other, which is great. Works really, really well. But there'd been a lot of misinformation around the incident on approach into the Reagan National Airport near DC. You might remember there was an awful incident involving an airplane and a helicopter, and there was talk about TCAS. So what we wanted to do was show people how the system actually works and how it's there to actually prevent those sort of incidents happening. And again, dispel some of the tropes. But also, it's great because we can actually help people learn from qualified pilots how to fly. So you can actually see some of the challenges that pilots go through, the information systems they use, and what you can do with them. So again, it's all about educating people so that some of these unhelpful tropes and myths don't persist.
Mm-hmm. And I like, and Rob Black, he's part of, the Rand group as well. I actually recorded 3 episodes with him to the point, and I'm like, I'm tired of you, man. But he brought a lot of interesting people to the table and other guests. So we talk a little bit about, and you can definitely wait on this, the gaming element, kind of like when you're teaching people, if they can, not by gaming meaning having fun, but the simulation part, I think it's a very important element in training the cybersecurity force, the incoming, and even maybe to fill that famous gap in Infosecurity that we have, because it's not just being coding, but it's about applying a lot of different skills and knowledge to the industry. And if you do it in a softer way, I think it works.
Yeah, I think so. So often you find, for example, in aviation, it's often so it's because it's such a safety critical industry. Sometimes safety actually gets in the way of cyber a little bit, and sometimes misunderstandings creep in. And a good example of that is you've probably seen the electronic flight bags that pilots use, the tablet computers they have in their laps when you board. You've probably seen those. And if we on the ground wanted to implement cybersecurity measures, we'd probably say, hey, use Face ID, right? Yeah, it's a great way of unlocking an iOS device. Problem is, a lot of pilots wear mirrored sunglasses, and actually Face ID doesn't work. So again, it's trying to make those connections so that the safety people understand the cyber people and vice versa. And you can often do that by bringing them together in an environment like that.
Yeah, I have the same issue with my Top Gun Ray-Ban. It's like it could tell it was me by wearing a mask back in a few years ago, but the Ray-Ban it's still giving a little bit of a trouble. So that's good. So let's cover I think the one that may sound a little bit more complicated to regular people is the security of the system from which our society depends on, electric grids and infrastructure and all of that. I feel like, but also, yeah, I mean, knock on wood, if an airplane fall, it makes a big news, but there is so much danger going on in the water we drink and everything else that run a city, a country. So how do you project that complexity?
So again, it's another different set of protocols and devices. And because many of these systems in industrial controls are really old, sometimes they don't stand up well to security testers who just work on regular networks. So you have to be very, very careful. And I think that creates barriers. And as a result, there's a lack of knowledge in a lot of industrial control system security. So what we were trying to do is try to, again, bridge that gap. So we brought along a little CTF with some industrial controllers so that people could start to get familiar with what's safe to do, what's not safe to do, how the protocols work, how to interpret them, how to reprogram them, how to hack them. But for fun, the output of that little CTF was that the industrial controllers would drive some pumps and make you a cocktail. So it's
nice. You brought it to the core.
If you got it wrong, you could tamper with the ladder logic the controllers ran, and actually make it like a too strong or too weak cocktail. But again, it's just about breaking down barriers so that people don't feel uncomfortable and they can look at industrial controls in an informed manner and help to understand the risk. And then we can all collaborate and help reduce that risk with a cocktail.
With a good cocktail or a beer, if you're in a pub as well. You could have connected to the draft as well and see how that came.
That would be messy.
Right. I know. Let's not go there. We mentioned at the beginning, and I definitely want to touch on that, as I follow a lot if you were having this conversation with Sean, it would have been a little bit more cybersecurity. For me, it's more how it affects society and the technology we use. So I want to go back to when we were reminiscing about DEFCON 2018, 2019. Looking back, are we making progress in working government, public sector, private sector? Are we more secure? Are we less secure? Looking back, looking where we are, where are we going from someone like you that have been doing it for a while?
I cannot see how collaboration and better understanding can hurt. I think 2019, I think Boeing were reeling from some challenging issues. I think CISA leaned in at the time. But actually, as a result of that, Boeing have some really strong collaboration with the cybersecurity industry. I think that they are a leading light of collaboration, probably some good news they could do with right now. But that can only be a positive thing. When we understand each other, when we understand each other's challenges, and we can help solve problems together, everybody wins, particularly the traveling public.
And you see this being improving? Do you see a different, I do, but I want your opinion, between what the European community is doing versus what other countries are doing? Do we need more guardrails? We didn't mention AI, so here you go. I throw that there, but we need to talk about it. But definitely, I see a more proactive approach from the European community with regulation. Some people say it's not a good thing. Some people say it is. I think we need a little bit of it for sure, the guardrail, a minimum. So is that improving the cybersecurity posture overall?
So regulation's a really interesting angle. So again, I'm more of a free market person. I think the market will often find the right level. However, I think in cyber that can be quite challenging. And there are several reasons. And the first one that really bothers me is particularly it's difficult for the consumer to make an informed decision at the point of purchase around cybersecurity. Yep. So, are they going to buy that smart product? Is it secure? We don't know. Are they going to fly that airline because they do cyber better? I don't know. And that's where I think regulation can help fill the gap. And whilst the US does regulate well in cyber, particularly in aviation, I think the EU's maybe a little bit further ahead. Certainly a good example might be an electronic flight bag, for example, that tablet computer the pilot holds. So in the USA, so there's fairly limited oversight by the regulator of that electronic flight bag. In the EU, there's quite strong oversight, and there's quite a difference there. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of opportunity for innovation around flight bags when there's a less onerous regulatory environment. But also, we do have to seriously consider those flight bags contain data that I think safety critical, like, for example, how much power do I set when I'm taking my plane off?
That could be interesting. Give me a little bit more for the audience not familiar with this. What do they use that for?
Wow. Okay. So
you said a couple of interesting things already. Like people may think like, all right, here is my flight route. No, that's way more than where you're flying at what time you depart. This is about everything that happened on the plane, right?
Yeah. So for some reasons of efficiency, you might remember the pilots always used to have big black cases, right? I've got one, and it's got all my paper charts in it, all my maps and approach plates and things. But for reasons of efficiency, we've done that digitally now. Of course we have. It means we can update those maps easily, and we can also get our passenger data onto that flight bag. We can get our weight and balance, so the plane's balanced properly. But one of the most important areas is what we call the performance calculator. So you might be surprised to know that it's quite rare we use full power for a takeoff. And the reason we don't do that is if the runway's long enough and we're not that heavy, why would you use full power? Because that wears the engines and burns fuel and sticks out carbon dioxide. So we do what's called a performance calculation, which based upon the length of the runway, the pressure, altitude, temperature, weight, etc. And that tells us how much power we use for a safe departure. So it might be as little as 50% power, which saves a load of fuel and carbon dioxide. But that calculation has lots of different facets, and it's calculated typically on that electronic flight bag. And over the years, we found security vulnerabilities in some of those calculators that mean you could, in some cases, convince the pilot to use a bit less power than they were supposed to. Now, don't get me wrong. We disclosed those vulnerabilities to the manufacturers. They fixed them, right? It is safe to fly, right? But it
Yeah.
was really interesting seeing actually you could make the runway appear to the calculator longer than it actually was. And
Mm.
there was some interesting incidents that happened at Lisbon airports in Portugal, whereby pilots had actually chosen the wrong runway intersection. So the calculators thought there was more runway than there actually was. And as a
Mm.
result, they took off too late. No, it was all fine. There was no safety impact. But it's amazing how you can potentially cause issues. But those problems got addressed. They got fixed. And those calculators are now safe and secure. So please, when you're taking off at an airport, you should feel safe.
Mm. And I think the message for that too is I just did it a while back. I don't know, when I was coming from LA to the UK, we left 2 hours later and we arrived, 40 minutes late. And then you think like, why didn't they just make it faster all the way? Exactly what you say, you don't need to push the engine and you don't want to push the engine, I guess, all the time, although it could. And that's interesting. So everything that it's about the flight, it's in that little device that they carry. Well, that was a nice bit of information, and maybe the people are not familiar, but of course they fly. They may find interesting and understand why certain things are done and why cybersecurity is important. And you go back and you read the news, and you could steer a car, and there was a big thing about Jeep a while back. So, but not to be afraid, because that's what cybersecurity does. And sometimes may feel like it's that extra step, maybe extra 3 steps, but is necessary. And you bring in these issues to the surface before it actually does happen, and you say, whoa, it could be. I think that's fundamental and a good way to be human, instead of hitting your head on the wall. And that is a little too late, right?
Yeah, I guess it's the inquisitive nature. My team, myself, we're naturally inquisitive. We want to know how things work and how they don't work. And if that results in security vulnerabilities being found that can then be fixed by the vendors, great. Then we're all safer because of it.
Yeah. That's what I call the hacker mentality, which I love. I never think about hacking as I call cyber criminals, not the hackers. The hacker is the person that use their brain to question, and I love that. And we should do that not only in technology, but in everything else we do. But it's another story for another maybe podcast, I guess. Well, Ken, I really enjoy this conversation. I hope the audience got a lot of information out of this, and I hope to see you again soon. You say not in Las Vegas this year at Black Hat. We will be there, but there'll be many more opportunities. And I always welcome your knowledge to the show, either with me, with Sean, or with the both of us. So, Ken, thank you very much.
Great speaking to you, Marco.
I appreciate it. And for everybody else, stay tuned. This is probably one of the last beats from Infosecurity Europe 2025, and start tuning in for Las Vegas. No London. I don't go to Las Vegas for fun, despite it sounds like it, but I'd rather not go. But I love to be there for Black Hat and everything else DEFCON that happens. So we'll see you there. Stay tuned, subscribe. Ken, again, thank you so much. It was awesome.
Thanks so much.